Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough. So, having finished Arendelle, we now have two more worlds that we can reach, which are the Caribbean and San Francisco, the last two Disney worlds of Kingdom Hearts 3. So we are really kind of going through it now. We are well over halfway to beating this story. That said, as you can see, we do have 10 treasure chests and quite a few lucky emblems to pick up in Arendelle. So we're going to go back and we're going to do those. Because honestly, I can't just leave these things incomplete. I mean, what sort of slightly neurotic playthrough would I be if I did that? Like, it's just not on. But yes, we're going to be spending the rest of this week in terms of video uploads in Arendelle, just sort of tying everything up. Because, as you may have noticed, obviously 10 treasure chests. We've got quite a lot of ground to cover to find them in, and they are littered sort of everywhere. So I do have quite a lot of exploration to do. But what it does mean is that we get to have a nice bit of time with Marshmallow. We get to enjoy his company as we explore the entirety of the Frozen Mountain, rather than just sitting waiting until, you know, the end, when it all kicks off. So I suppose one of the things that is worth bringing up is obviously the fact that Frozen 2 is officially a thing. I mean, we knew it was a thing anyway, but there was a trailer released for it not that long after Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, and it looked really fascinating and really interesting. There seems to be a lot more going on in terms of sort of action-adventure type stuff, which does make you then question, well, why couldn't, you know, Elsa and Anna have been fighting in here? But then, obviously, as I believe I did say in an earlier part of Arendelle, it might have been that Disney wanted to make that change to their characters first, because they're not really that combat-oriented in the original here, and sort of you need that character growth, and if you're following the narrative of Frozen, you kind of are limited in that sense. But it looks fun. I'm hoping that the music is glorious. I think what it could probably do with is having a song that is as anthemic as Let It Go, but which is not as nearly overplayed as Let It Go was at the time. Because I think that ultimately that did lead to a lot of the frustrations that people feel about Frozen. Is it kind of falls into that far too many people like it. It's overplayed, it's overrated, etc. Which is a thing that sort of happens to a lot of people, a lot of pop stars, a lot of films, a lot of stories. Like, I mean, I don't really want to include Frozen in the categories with these things, but you look at, like, Justin Bieber, you look at, like, Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, etc. They were all things that a lot of people looked at, saw how hugely popular they had become, and then just went, no, it's rubbish. Without necessarily looking into the full thing, but admittedly with 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight, when you actually look at the actual things, no, they are actually rubbish, and really, they should probably not have ended up being as popular as they were. Whereas I would say, at least with Frozen, while it may not necessarily have the depth, I suppose, or didn't necessarily go in the same route as most people would probably like or prefer, I would say that you really would struggle to say that Frozen is a bad film. Whether you say that it's an excellent film or not is a different kettle of fish, but I would say that you can't say that it is a bad film, especially considering the fact that, I mean, the reaction to it is, it's pretty much positive. There's a lot of positive character interactions in there, a lot of good stories, a lot of good sort of messages, etc. It's all good stuff. There's catchy songs in there. There's nothing in it that I would say is no, that is bad. So yeah, I would like Frozen 2 to have a song that is as anthemic, but not as overplayed, because I think that might put it in better stead. Obviously, also better instances of character development, spending more time with Elsa and actually sort of delving into that a bit more would be good, because I think that is one of the things that the original Frozen did suffer from, is that there wasn't really enough time spent on Elsa's mental health issues, really, and the struggles that she was facing, and so it was dealt with in very broad strokes. It's something that I think is dealt with more effectively in the Broadway show because there's more time to spend on it, but obviously, having not actually seen the Broadway show yet, and I'm still waiting for it to come over the White Way to the West End. I'm going to be waiting at least a year for that one, 2020. But you get the sort of general gist. It's interesting, there's stuff kind of going on. Obviously, Elsa has more songs. You have Dangerous to Dream, which then goes into Let It Go, which then goes into Monster, and so you have more of a character arc for her in song. And I do think that some of the songs that they added into the Broadway show are amazing. Like, Monster is just awesome. And it's a great belter as well. Because it's just like, it's finally come to knock down my door. I can't hide this time like I hid before. The storm is awake, the danger is real. My time's running out, don't feel. Fear won't be our enemy, and death its consequence. That's what they once said to me, and it's starting to make sense. All this pain, all this fear began because of me. Is the thing they see, the thing I have to be. A monster. Were they right? Has the dark in me finally come to light? Am I a monster, full of rage, nowhere to go but on a rampage? Or am I just a monster in a cage? And yeah, it sort of obviously ramps up. Just like, no, I have to stay alive to fix what I've done, save the world from myself, and bring back the sun. If I'm a monster, then it's true. There's only one left thing for me to do. But before I fade too wide, I'll do all that I can to make things right. I cannot be a monster. I will not be a monster. Not tonight. Yeah, I love that song. It's epic and big and rah. It's great. There are a couple of interesting songs added into the Frozen Broadway show. The key sort of odd one is Higa, which is, yeah, it's bizarre. It's like, Higa means something. Higa means lazy. Higa da 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 do do da da da. Which, yeah, not sure I'm the biggest fan of that one. It's funny. It's an interesting start to Act 2. But still. There's also a lot more use of Let It Go throughout the musical, but they changed the...
Let's see.
How should I put it? They changed the lyrics a little bit, so rather than let the storm rage on, it's let the sun shine on. And so obviously it's the twist into that, and that's quite fun. They also fix her up a little bit because yeah, not many people are that much of a fan of this song. So turning it into more of a bit more gospel, a bit more of a dance moment. It's a bit more exciting, a bit more interesting. And also they do throw in a tiny bit of whaley throughout, the na 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 hey ya na ha ya na ha na hey ya na ya no ha na hey no na, and so on and so forth. They also actually give Hans a few songs outside of obviously Love is an Open Door. Love's an open door. Love's an open door with you, with you, with you. Love's an open door. And so on. So it's instead he gets 2 extra songs, which is just called Hans of the Southern Isles, of him sort of going over his history and so on and so forth. Pretty much there are quite a few changes to the story, obviously, because they have to be. So Marshmallow, unfortunately, my friend, my brother, doesn't exist in the show. Neither do the wolves. Basically, it's because the team opted for more psychological and less physical drama, so those particular set pieces are removed. The trolls were changed to creatures known as the Hidden Folk, who were drawn from Scandinavian folklore. It sort of moves away from the original fairy tale of the Snow Queen, but hey, the King of the Southern Isles is mentioned by Hans, but he doesn't appear, but he didn't appear in the original film anyway, so hey. The Duke of Westleton is simply credited as Westleton in the show. He's also younger and less cowardly than his film counterpart. He's a bit more of a villain. Then Cliff the Troll, who I'm pretty sure is wasn't really part of the original film, but sort of there. Anyway, his role's taken by Grandpappy in Fixer Upper. I don't know whether Cliff the Troll was meant to be the one who does the wedding rites during Fixer Upper, but that's Grandpappy. Yeah, one of the biggest ones is that obviously the film opens up with Frozen Heart, like cold and winter air and mountain rain combining this icy force both foul and fair as a frozen lightning. Whereas the stage show opens in a verdant landscape with the Hidden Folk chanting in Norwegian, so they do a bit of whaley. Frozen Heart's just cuts, but instrumentals of the song appear throughout the soundtrack. And so Kristoff's introduction as a child is also cut, but to be fair, it's not really something that you hugely need. You then have King Agnar and Queen Iduna. Rather than dying during their teens, Anna and Elsa's teens, they die during Anna and Elsa's childhood in the musical, so there's a bit more time of them growing up without them. Anna also informally meets Kristoff on Coronation Day whilst bumping into Hans during the musical, whereas which basically replaces obviously where they meet during the film, with Hans and Anna falling into the boat. And the placement of Let It Go has changed quite dramatically. So in the original film, it takes place pretty much after Love is an Open Door. but in the musical, it takes place at the end of Act 1, because, I mean, really, Let It Go is an Act 1 closer number. It's the big belter that you sort of just go, yes! And also they did change the, just the ending of the song. So, rather than let the storm rage on, the cold never bothered me anyway. It's, let the storm rage on, the cold never bothered me anyway. So it goes up like that and has a sort of big Broadway final note, and it's quite spectacular. So it takes place after Rangers Are Better Than People and in summer. Then in the movie, Anna meets Kristoff at Wandering Oaken's trading post, and then they meet Olaf en route to Elsa's palace. But in the musical, Anna meets Kristoff and Olaf before they ever meet Oaken. So Westleton actually joins Hans on his expedition to Elsas Ice Palace, not just his 2 men. And in the movie, Arundel cuts off trade with Westleton after the Eternal Winter ends, as a response to, obviously, you know, the Duke of Weaseltown sending his men to kill Elsa in her palace. But in the musical, the Duke accompanies Hans on his journey to the North Mountain, so that's a bit different. But also, Arundel and Westleton's trade relationship stays healthy at the end, and the Duke pledges his loyalty to Elsa. So he ends up being not quite so Weasley of a guy. But there we go. And I'll have to. I am going to be very intrigued to see the show when it finally comes to the West End, because I think the general reaction to the Broadway show has been mixed. So the Denver tryout was mixed, but found the show promising. It was fun, but not transporting. Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez have augmented their score for the original film, which featured just 8 songs to 20 songs in all now. There are occasional moments that feel padded, but the surging power ballads that are the score's signature are stunningly delivered by Levy and Murrin. Levy and Murrin being Patty Murrin and Casey Levy, who play Anna and Elsa respectively. The Broadway show, I think, received slightly more mixed reviews. It was rousing, often dull, alternately dopey. Which I suppose makes sense for Frozen. Levy's and Murrin's performances were very highly praised, as was the set and lighting design, but the new musical numbers were criticised. I think primarily it would have been things like maybe Let the Sun Shine On, maybe a little bit of You, maybe Hidden Folk. Maybe True Love, I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of that one. Colder by the Minute, which takes place during the massive snowstorm at the end of the film. That's an interesting one. Honestly, and I suppose there's Higa as well, which is a very peculiar number. Also, can you see I'm getting very lost trying to find everything in here, because it's kind of really difficult to get up and down when you're not quite sure where the hell your treasure chests are. It's once again that whole thing of when you create an area like this that doesn't necessarily entirely make sense, and the only way that you can really get into it is through this particular path. So, I mean, honestly, I think that I probably could have gotten through all of this area a lot quicker had I, you know, actually just sort of maybe cut out some of the backtracking-y mess of this particular area. But once again, the way that I wanted to present this whole shtick, so the whole thing of the Kingdom Hearts 3 playthrough was to basically do it as I experienced it. So when things were a little bit slower, that's exactly sort of what ended up happening. and I think that it would be, for me anyway, considering the premise that I had for this particular playthrough, it would be slightly disingenuous of me to overly change how I did everything. Also, this was an interesting leap that needed to be made in order to get to a treasure chest that I was not expecting. Because yeah, you need to do that to get up over here, as you do. So yeah, I think that I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and undoubtedly I will say it yet another time, although that will probably be in the Caribbean, just because I know that I did end up spending quite a lot of time in the Caribbean, because the Caribbean is freaking huge. Like, seriously, the place is just absolutely ginormous. I mean, having a look at the general scope, I might be in the Caribbean for at least 7 parts. And I know for a fact that maybe only 3 of them are story related. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one for me, because obviously, you know, my whole commentary style, as we have discussed many a time, is at times a slightly peculiar one. But it's gonna be okay. I will make it through. Largely because when we are actually exploring the Caribbean, we won't really be sticking around in the same islands or the same areas for a long time trying to figure out where the hell I'm supposed to go. Because even though it's a gigantic area, it's not quite as I suppose confusing as some of these other areas. But hey, it's alright. Also, what is quite fun...
Bad news, Sora. It happened again.
Is, yes. When you come back here... Yeah. Olaf has fallen apart again. So we have to go put him back together. So if you didn't see all of the different options for what you can do to Olaf, this is your chance to sort of go back and look through it all. I'm not sure whether this happens every single time you go into the world, whether it's every time you go through this area. I don't think it is. I think it's probably every time that you come to the world if you go through this particular area, which it's kind of frustrating if that is indeed the case. But I suppose it's a way to not miss scenes, because I'd say outside of this there are 2 locations where I believe you can sort of permanently miss seeing something. One of those being the Kingdom of Corona, with your time with Rapunzel, and the other one is the final world of the game, actually.
There you go.
So you've got those. Also, I will say There is a slight flaw in obviously when we return to the kingdom. I suppose the mountain can remain snowy, so that's all right. But the fact that
I'm glad Olaf is having fun.
the obviously love will thaw. We thawed the frozen winter, and then it's all snowy again. It's questionable. Definitely questionable. But hey, I will take it because it means that we get to listen to this lovely little tune again. And I will say that this song does just make me happy. I think it's the bounce to it. It's the same thing sort of whenever I really play any game. If like the field themes and the battle themes have a good old bit of a sort of like a bounce and a vibe to everything, it just makes me a bit more excited. It just sort of thrills me. Also, I remembered that I needed to get a picture of Olaf, so well, did that just in time before I forgot, because otherwise, you know, would not have been having that at all.
Ooh, is that some sort of spyglass?
Come on, Elsa, smile.
That's interesting.
So yeah, obviously you, once again, all the different characters can react to your camera. And obviously in these worlds where cameras are not a thing, obviously they're just like, ooh, what is that? That's peculiar. It sort of makes me want Sora to just sort of go, yeah, like, I'm just going to take a selfie with you, like, cheese. And then they'll be like, what sort of magic is this? And it'd be just quite exciting. Also, can I say that the Crystal Snow Keyblade, which we're using right now, its finisher from the, I believe it's the Blizzard Claws, which we're going into now. Although it might be an extra step above Blizzard Claws, I can't quite remember. It's really fun and really makes me happy because it references the building of Elsas Ice Castle in it. And it just makes me really happy. Okay, no, so there is an extra step, which is Blizzard Blades! So we go into sort of ice skates and swords made of ice. And I am totally down with this. Annoyingly, there aren't any enemies nearby for me to use my finisher on. I was hoping that maybe I'd be able to sort of run into some soon enough to be able to do it. But they were not there. Annoyingly, probably had I not stopped, I might have been able to use it. But there we go. You win some, you lose some. Also, can I just say that the massive snowballs that you can use throughout this whole shtick are really, really, really good at causing damage to enemies. They're brilliant. So basically, if you want a way of sort of protecting yourself from damage while at the same time causing mass chaos, use them. Just run on them and ram into everything. And you'll have a delightful time. Also, I'm still annoyed that despite doing this whole run through, I'm still going to end up missing the portobello mushrooms, which are hidden very, very well in this world. It's basically the only ingredient, I suppose, that I ended up missing, and also thankfully that was not too horrendously terrible, but I was slightly concerned about making that leap. I suppose the fact that we do have the double jump and the air slide at this moment in time definitely helps make those sorts of leaps a lot more feasible. Obviously, the second we get glide, those things are just completely, absolutely pointless. That said, I don't think that actually, even though we get glide, I don't think that we ever get super glide. I'm actually going to double check that, because I suppose it's one of the things that it's been pretty much a mainstay ability, and I don't think it's here. Okay, so it's a bit complicated. Basically, it doesn't. So Kingdom Hearts 3 does not have Super Glide as Super Glide, which it has in previous games. You only have regular glide. However, when you are in certain forms, you do tend to get a form of Super Glide. So one of the things is Nano Arms, Blizzard Blades all give you a form of Super Glide. But that said, the glide that you do eventually get in this world, not in this world, in the game, is much more akin to Super Glide from previous games. So I'm honestly not overly bothered by that, because the glide does a pretty excellent job anyway. Also, I see an area that I don't know whether I explored. I mean, I am partially just trying to quickly cheese my way through this area because some of it is it's a little bit longer than I would perhaps like. If you want the portobello mushrooms, pretty much look around here. I believe there's a bush which you need to hit. And it has wonderful, wonderful portobello mushrooms in it. But I didn't know that. They didn't tell me, oh, it looks like there could be an ingredient round here. So I wasn't aware. But either way, we're still gonna sort of just beat the hell out of these Heartless. I do wonder at what point I did manage to finally pull off the finisher of the Blizzard Blades. Now, come on, just pull it off now, since you know there are enemies. And yes, here we go. So you get the stamp, you get that, and then the chandelier appears and you smash it down, and I love that finisher. Just absolutely love it. I don't necessarily, I'm not the biggest fan of the Keyblade itself. I do think that it is perhaps overly simplistic in design, but I suppose part of that is it's a sort of evil necessity, because I mean it's ice. What else are you going to do with it in terms of design? But yeah, this was a sneaky little hidden treasure chest. It was just like, yes, just jump off the cliff right here. No telling that that's exactly where you would need to do it, other than sort of you can see, oh, it looks like there's a platform down there. But hey, it worked out in the end, so it's all good. Also, something that I would like to point out is that it's sort of a really side thing, and I mean, I suppose there's 5 minutes left, so I might as well. Also, yeah, hit that thing. That's, I think, where the mushrooms are. Oh well. I do think that you do level up at a really nice pace throughout Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, there are certain games, I mean, Dream Drop Distance is a prime example where it can feel like you are dramatically underleveled from where you should be, even when you're not. And it's entirely a numbers thing, because you look at the numbers and sort of you are about level 30 or whatever by the time you get to sort of like the final areas. And you kind of want to be sort of like level... If you're on standard, I think it was level 35 for the final bosses. If it's proud, you want to be sort of close to like level 40. Birth by Sleep, you're sitting around level 40 by the time you get to the final areas. But then you look at like the original Kingdom Hearts 2, you really sort of want to be in the 50s. And I would say that Kingdom Hearts 3 is no different to that. In that the game sort of does expect you to be closer to, well, being in the 50s rather than being much lower. You can definitely still beat the game if you're lower. I mean, obviously there are people who are incredible at video games who can do this game on proud mode at level 1. Personally, I think they're lunatics. And honestly, I don't know how they pull these things off, but it just sort of goes to show that it's certainly possible to do it. And I mean, I recall someone going, like, trying to figure out what was the optimum level to play through the game in order to sort of get a decent challenge, as they said. And I think they said that actually it was around level 15? So, like, if you got up to level 15 and then turned on the 0 XP, that was a pretty sort of fun level to sort of stick at. And I suppose that sort of is a fascinating thing to look at. I will also be very intrigued to see how the critical mode turns out that the Kingdom Hearts team are working on right now. Because obviously that is going to change up how you play the game, and it could be quite exciting, it could be less exciting, I don't really know. Because I mean, admittedly, I've not played a single Kingdom Hearts game on critical. So part of me feels that maybe at some point I should try that challenge, but then also the other part of me is just like, not really all that bothered. Because I don't know, I feel that Proud is pretty good for me in terms of the challenge level and what the game sort of expects you to do in terms of grinding and oh. That was one of those moments of going, I don't see a lucky emblem. Turn around. Oh, yes, that is definitely a lucky emblem. But it's all alright. But this pretty much, I think, brings us to the end of this round of going through Arendelle. We're just going to get to the end of this area, pick up the rest of the things. I think we're getting close. Yeah, so we've got 2 treasure chests remaining in vastly different locations, which is slightly concerning, but there we go. And then I don't think we have many lucky emblems left either. So next time we should be in for a much shorter ride, and then we can move on to Worlds New. But of course, let's get that final lucky emblem before we move on, and up ahead is the Ice Palace. Let's see how Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, Marshmallow, and Sven and Olaf are getting on, eh?